Good morning, Vietnam. I tell you fucking what, mate. In all these years of seeing people effectively pointing cameras at their faces in public, there is never a point at which, still, I can make it seem natural when I'm doing it myself. So, I'm deliberately going to try and find a place, drive to it, where I'm guaranteed to be in the absolute middle of buttfuck nowhere, so I can talk to a fucking camera. We do like being normal. There's probably some very primitive reason why I find literally just driving to a random destination so satisfying. Sometimes I feel like if I want a day to feel like it's been lived to a full-ish extent, I do need to feel as if I've gone somewhere, as if I've traveled to a destination to do a thing and then go back somewhere else. Even if I've had a productive day just like in my house, it doesn't feel as fulfilling as a day in which I've been productive in my house, but also, I don't know, gone to the shops at some point. It's very weird how that shit works.
Dude, what a beautiful day for garbage. How the fuck do I feasibly get over this thing? Okay, that'll do. Oh. Alright, what we've got over here. Only interesting thing so far seems to be this fucking TV. Ooh! That's a bottle of lube. Old CDs, there might be something interesting. Fucking hell. What the fuck have we got here? Some old films? This is how bad I am at films, dude. Every single time I, find a pile of old shit, or I'm with someone else, and we're doing this kind of shit, they'll recognise all of these, old, very obscure films, and I won't have a single idea what we're talking about. I'm 21 years old. My favourite film is still fucking Finding Nemo. That's how bad I am at watching films, dude. Shanghai Nights with Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson. Who did the casting for that? That's just clocked me. Who decided Owen Wilson and Jackie Chan would be an amazing pairing? The guy watched fucking Marley and Me and said, I've got an idea. God, the sun is really fucking intense. I can't even look upright properly. You reckon you believe me if I said all of this used to be a golf course? I fucking wouldn't. This is a semi-new development. Someone decided to burn this whole fucking building that used to be here. This was like a shed. When it used to be a golf course, I guess they kept all the clubs and balls in this shit. There's absolutely no reason why I should pretend that this is an arson attack, despite the fact that an arson attack would be significantly more interesting than what actually probably happened. It's probably either an exploding gas tank, or someone deciding this shit doesn't need to be here anymore. Mate, that looks like a Biffy Clyro album cover. Dude, if I ever just ran out of money, I could totally just spruce this place up. Imagine living in a shed in the middle of nowhere and no one knows where you are. That's a cable hole in the back. What the hell? Was someone trying to get electricity in here? Genuine question, how long do you reckon you could actually stay out in one of these before someone comes and finds you? Someone was powering a whole fucking floodlight with this. So it was a permanent enough installation that someone needed light for whatever the fuck they were doing. Moral of the story, even garbage can be interesting. Especially if that garbage stars Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson.
So I am 30 days away from finishing my bachelor's in philosophy. Every single time I talk about being a philosophy student, I always get the same reaction when I'm talking to someone new. It's always some derivative of ooh. The only problem with those kind of reactions is that it really aggravates this imposter syndrome I have around my degree. The thing with my university is that in an effort to try and reduce anxiety in and around all of their courses, they've minimized the amount of exams you actually have to do, which, when you're someone who has ADHD and will, if there is an opportunity to not learn something by rote, will not learn something by rote, is kind of bad for, culpability when you finish the bachelor's. I could write a few essays and do a couple dissertations on some stuff. Yes, that's totally fine. But there's no guarantee when I finish those dissertations that they'll actually stay in my fucking head. The bachelor's at that point doesn't become a qualifier of knowing anything in a subject. It becomes a qualifier of having studied it at some point, which is kind of funny. But that doesn't mean it was a completely useless course. My favourite semester is probably semester 1 of my 3rd year, because that is the point at which the modules started gravitating towards philosophy about philosophy. It felt like stuff was actually getting done when I was in that particular semester. No particular reason, it's just that sometimes when you do a first year course, universities are cognizant of the fact that the first year doesn't necessarily count when they design their course. First year, I think in its entirety, is made with the express purpose of making sure everyone's on the same page, because we've all come from different schools and probably done different exam boards, which means the content can be a little bit simplistic and a little bit stretched out sometimes. But that's totally fine. First year's not for the express purpose of learning anything. Everyone knew that from the start. Anyway, 3rd year, is when meta-philosophy started happening. Philosophy about philosophy, what philosophy should constitute, what the philosophical project necessarily contains. And I hope my efforts as I'm talking right now aren't enough to put anyone to sleep, but to be quite frank, the amount of jargon involved in doing any sort of philosophical explication is enough to turn anyone off, myself included. So, without further ado, here's one of my favourite things that I came across during my philosophy course. Let me start by giving you... Actually, I've got some space over here, don't I? Here's what I learned earlier. Think of the example of a colour wheel, right? Some people will learn this in physics when they're a lot younger, but there's this whole idea in science and whatever the fuck else, that there will always be 2 points on a colour wheel that will be distinct from each other. You could have a point A wherever you want on the colour wheel, and a point B at some other point. Right? So long as you have these 2 points on the colour wheel, there will always be a point in between those 2 points that is itself a distinct colour. It's right in the middle of A and B. You can label it C if you want, if that makes it easier. And then once you have C established, what you can do is you can take C, you can go next to C at some random point, and you can pick another colour in between those two. So you've got C, a point next to C, which you can label D, and then a colour in between those called E. The whole point of this thought experiment is to display this idea that you can go on infinitely. There will always be a unique colour in between 2 other colours, which is in of itself its own identity insofar as it can be distinct from 2 other things. So, now that that bit's out of the way, the next bit to explain is how that applies to other things. One of the main ways of understanding the philosophical project is in something known as conceptual analysis. This doesn't consist of the entirety of philosophy. This is just one approach that was mainly attributed to, I want to say, like 18th, 19th century philosophers. People like Gottlob Frege, stuff like that. Bertrand Russell also likes the idea of philosophy as conceptual analysis. Those names you don't need to remember though. Conceptual analysis essentially is this idea of philosophy essentially being explaining a particular concept in terms of subordinate concepts beneath it. So for example, you could explain the concept of dog with subordinate concepts of being 4-legged, having a tail, having a nose, liking dog food, tennis ball. Dude, there's a fucking horse. Holy shit.
Are you seeing this shit right now? This is the perfect point for the horse to start doing literally nothing. It just walked over. I think it can hear me. The horses have, like, heightened senses. Hey, bro? Hey, what's up?
Wait, where was I? Fuck. Every single thing that you can understand can be itself explicated by some sort of sub-concept that constitutes the concept that you're trying to describe. The dilemma being that when you have all of these concepts and you understand that these concepts can be themselves described by other concepts, there's a point at which it'll go on infinitely. This can have several theoretical problems for a lot of what we understand to be part of human progress, human improvement, and a greater understanding of the world around us. If it remains true that there is always a point at which you can split a concept into subordinate concepts, this notion of ever having a complete science, of complete and whole understanding of the world, that suddenly becomes completely impossible. Because think about it from this angle, right? I'm counting on like a pretty rudimentary understanding of physics of someone who's like never really studied it to a great extent, right? But like, you think about a Planck length, you think about what we understand to be the smallest measurement or entity possible. There's gotta be some sense of dissatisfaction inherent within just accepting the fact that the smallest thing is a Planck length, and there's no point at which that can be extrapolated or divided. Some people, when they're told that the smallest thing possible is a Planck length, and quote unquote, that's just the way it is, will see that as an equal amount of just like faith arguing as people who will argue in sort of like a baseless misunderstanding way of religion, that God is the omnibenevolent thing, that God is the omnipotent thing, and that's just the way it is. There's an equal amount of dissatisfaction in both the sciences with the Planck length and religion with this notion of God just being the be-all and end-all. These kind of ideas are ones that can shake the foundation of science as being this all-reliable, all-knowing discipline. It understands a hell of a lot, and there's a lot that we can learn from it, primarily in practical sciences like medicine. But I think there is a point at which the ground will always get shaky, the information will get more inferential, and ultimately the like waters of human knowledge gets really, really muddy. So yeah, that's enough of me pretending to be fucking interesting. I'm gonna go see, there's a car wash around the corner. I've never actually been through a mechanical car wash before because they're always broken and I really, really want to go through one. Dude, I am unnecessarily excited for this. They fundamentally saw people washing their cars and said, let's make this the most fun activity possible. I forgot you had to remove your aerial for this shit. Fucking hell. What the fuck, man? This is the most thrilling experience I will have for several months.
Oh, I can't tell if it's scratching the fuck out my car. This is significantly more claustrophobic than I thought it was going to be. Are these healthy noises? This sound, man. What a sound. I think that's the worst of it. None of that sounded like it was a good noise. Every single part of this machinery looks like it's centimetres away from ruining my car immediately. Hey, I think we're on out. Oh, it's still moving. Fuck it, I'm out of here.
So I'm back at the gaff. I'm going to see if there's actually any damage to the outside of my car. If there is, I will be murdering several people at gunpoint. Just kidding. Realised halfway through filming the results of the actual car wash that you'd be getting my plates, and I don't want you to actually get those. And probably the surrounding area of my house. So you're getting neither of those bits of footage. Bottom line, wasn't actually anything on the car. Fair enough. To have the kid... Yes, yep, okay. We're going to leave that take in. I'm going to head off. Cheers.